lose sight of the fact that the folks who don't work in the sector kind of don't really get it. You know, they kind of don't really pay attention. And I'm guilty of that. Before I got into the water sector, I didn't give two hoots about, you know, I just turned the water on, flushed the toilet, and didn't think about it ever. And then once you get in, you're like, why aren't people thinking about this?
Yeah.
And so it's important for them to, it's important for utilities, clean water agencies, to tell their stories, to connect with people so that they understand and value what it is that we do for them. And, you know, I don't think anybody really thinks about the fact that if we didn't have clean water, society would come to a screeching halt.
Collapse.
It's not just you can't flush the toilet, but you can't work. People can't go to work. People can't function. Factories, restaurants, anything. So we have to tell stories to connect with people and to put it into context and relevance to the folks outside of our sector.
Sure.
Yeah.
What do you think about storytelling being a bit of a missing practice from the water sector, and why they need to do more of this?
Well, I think with the challenges that we're having, it's become more and more evident that we can't solve these challenges on our own. We need the help of our customers. We need their understanding, and we need them to understand it enough to know how to change. And Kendall Haven, who's a story expert, studies all the neuroscience behind storytelling that I love, he has this quote that says, "Nobody stormed Washington over a pie chart." Like, facts and figures alone are not going to get people to take action. It's that emotional component, and story is really the only thing that connects people in that way to inspire, motivate, change attitudes, beliefs, to actually make those changes that we need them. It's a partnership that we're in.
Yeah. All right, let's try to dive into details a little bit here, because there might be, you know, some water utility managers or other folks watching, and they're like, all right, fine, I'll tell stories. They convinced me. What types of stories should be told about the water sector? What's the narrative in that content? What's out there? Go to you first, this one, Stephanie.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say, like, I'm actually going to, instead of giving some examples of what type of content, I'm going to say that you need to get to know your audience and who's out there. So that will help you kind of define what stories matter to them. Because every audience is going to have something different that's going to resonate and compel them to take that action, to compel them to care. And if you're just figuring that out by sitting around a room with everybody who looks the same and who doesn't have the same experiences as different pockets of your community, then you're likely to miss the mark repeatedly on trying to find a message that's going to resonate. So in terms of like what kind of stories should you tell, I think you need to go get to know your community and your audience, see what they care about, and then build your shot list from there and what content you need to put out.
Oh, great. Samantha.
Yeah, 100% agree with Stephanie, of course. And then, you know, this whole idea of operational transparency, the idea that, you know, people either fear or reject what they don't know, right? They reject rate increases because they don't trust that the utility is doing the right thing or spending money in the right way. We fear our neighbors or don't trust them because they painted the door pink. You know, all those things that are always broken down when you reveal and when you're, you know, telling stories and communicating. And this idea of operational transparency, lifting the curtain, bringing people in, letting them see, you know, kind of radical transparency that we live in this community too. We care about the earth. We care about people's health. And this is how we're doing it. And this is what it takes to do it. Every time that happens, every time one of those stories are told, I guarantee you there's a consumer on the other side who's going, oh, I get it now.
Wow, that's how that happens. That's an interesting point, because I was talking about biosolids earlier and how utilities should maybe bring people in and show them how
100%.
These things are made. This is actually what this is, and here's the process from A to Z.
Let's demystify it for everybody.
Right, and that's a story that could be told. Okay, maybe the people don't have to physically come in, but you could sure put a video out about that, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that example, because story is not, I think when you say story, people think of a book or film or TV show or whatever, but it's really those face-to-face conversations, those dialogues, that's also an opportunity for you to tell the story. So your story can be told in a lot of different ways to a lot of different people, and those come see how we do this, or let's have a face-to-face conversation about that. In my experience when doing the work, specifically when I worked for public utilities, those are the places where I had the aha moments and where we built like lifelong ambassadors.
You know what I think is funny is in our personal lives, as Stephanie said, we are natural storytellers. Most folks with their spouses, their significant others, their children, their cousins, they sit around and tell stories for the heck of it. You get inside your office, like you drive to work and something happens on the way in,
Yeah.
and you get there and suddenly you're like, pshoo, I'm now going to broadcast corporate.
I'm a
crap.
robot.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm a robot.
Yeah.
I'm going to sound like a robot.
And we say things to the public that we wouldn't listen to ourselves if we were on the other side.
Yeah.
And I think if people within this sector approach storytelling not unlike the way you do inside your own home when you're trying to connect with your spouse, your significant other, your kid, your sister, anything like that, that connection would be so much greater. Use their words.
Yeah.
As Stephanie said, find out what matters to them and tell the story that you think will delight them, that they'll carry on.
People write great Facebook posts about what they did on their vacation or what they, what happened that Saturday, some event in the neighborhood. I mean, they write great stories and
We
put a
have
picture
to adopt
with it.
that voice.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
What are some of the platforms, channels, vehicles, the water sector, should use to put out these kind of stories?
Well, again, it goes back to where's your audience?
Yeah.
We have limited hours, dollars, budgets, resources.
Yes.
So we don't, as a sector, we can't afford to go chasing down everything. You've got to go do the work, study to see who are the key stakeholders you need to reach on any given topic. Find out where they are and meet them there. So if they are on Facebook, be on Facebook. But don't be trying to broadcast to everybody. If you're trying to meet everybody, you're meeting nobody, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to get specific. Before I let Stephanie jump in, I want to say that I'm hugely excited about the opportunity TikTok has for this sector.
Yeah.
We're not mastering any of the other platforms by any stretch, but what TikTok does, because it is natural storytelling, what it's doing right now and what potential it holds for this sector is, to me, phenomenal.
Do you think it helps that it's meant to be a little more casual and
100%,
organic and
right.
not as stuffy and you can be a little more authentic?
I mean, I'm a little afraid that the water sector would get their hands on it and still be stuffy about it. We need
We'd find
them,
a way.
They would find the way, right? But we need to get them to just, if you're thinking, well, what would I do on TikTok? Stand in front of your kitchen sink, turn it on full blast, and go, hey, you want to know what the greatest value is in your home that you don't even know?
What goes?
Yep.
Yep.
and say a few things in a minute, and then at the end be like, and that was 1 penny, or whatever,
Right. Yeah, easy.
It's a great place to talk, about, for a lot of folks in the industry, it's taboo to really get out there and talk about poop or flushing the toilet or potty talk or whatever you want to call it. There's no better place to have that conversation than on TikTok. Let's just say that. But I totally agree
100%,
that it depends where your audience is. And for me, it's about remembering that I feel like a lot of times when utilities think about communication, they think about reputation management. And so they think about who can we get that can work with the media, who can we get to work with reporters, and all of that side of it. And that's obviously important, but I think the other side is yes and have somebody out there who is comfortable and has experience in almost like outreach and advocacy in your community that becomes kind of the face of your utility, not like the face, but who becomes like a touch point for communities and is building those partnerships and building those relationships. Because if you don't have a presence, to me, it's really important to go where people are. We need to stop. Everyone's busy. I think that even got mentioned during opening general session. We're all so busy. We're all so worn thin. And now we're asking people to do something else by come to us. And we need to be going to them more and taking the time to go to the festivals where they're at or whatever, and creating that space for us to have those conversations.
But we're there already in so many ways. We're in the community in so many hidden and invisible ways. It's just that next step of persons physically also being there. And I think Stephanie's right. I would actually say have some people be the face. have some people get out there. Sometimes when we talk to utilities, we say, well, is your leadership involved? Are your staff involved in the community? Are they serving in the, on the environmental commission? Are they serving on the Bay Committee? Are they in the Chamber of Commerce? Like, be visible and show them you're a part of the community.
Yeah.
You both have mentioned this repeatedly here about learning more about your audience and kind of that outreach piece to your audience. So that's vital to the storytelling process. So let's dig into that a little bit more. Like how else can you get out there? How do you learn more about your audience? You've mentioned some of the ways. Like, what are some of the ways, and then how do you learn about your audience and what they're interested in, what channels they use? I just asked you 6 questions in one, but you get where I'm getting at.
Yeah. Go ahead. You start.
Me start? There's so many ways to get to know your audience. First and foremost, it really helps if you live within the community that you serve.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. If you want to get to know kind of, just demographics, like on paper, who are they broken down by, income and all those things, your local economic development office, of course, census, all those things you can go to. But if you want to kind of know the qualitative, what do they care about? What do they, who are they listening to? Those types of things. Again, get involved. But also one of my go-to favorites is interviewing influencers. Like identifying within your leadership team or some folks within your office who know the community well. If you can identify 6, 10, 12 people that are in positions of influence throughout the community, and you can call them and have a conversation.
Nice.
Maybe an hour, 45 minutes, and some questions like, what do you think matters to this community? What do you think the community thinks of this utility, this agency? What are they getting right? What do people worry about? And then you get the context of where wastewater is in their minds, or what are these preconceived or myths that are out there that you need to address. So you get a really good flavor that way.
Sure. What do you think? How do you learn more about your audience?
Well, to piggyback on what you were talking about in the research piece is that we need to be investing in that and making the money to have professionals come in. I feel there's no other, I don't know if this is true or not, but like how many successful industries out there that aren't doing the research to understand their customer are doing well? And most are not because they're probably out of business. So I think that it's important that I saw a tweet on Twitter that was talking about how there's so much misinformation out there. But until we, and it's like, why, how are we get this with water? But until we begin to invest and appreciate and value communication the same way as clarifiers and digesters and all of those things, we are still going to be sitting here treading water, just walking on a treadmill, not making any difference. This stuff costs money. It costs money to do it right, and we need to be making that investment.
Yes.
Yes. There we go.
Yes, and I mean this with the absolute love and no disrespect to anybody who's out there trying to do it, but please don't just go, okay, former lab analyst, former financial procurement officer, can you also just kind of do this comms thing for us? There are professional communicators, people who go to school, who get, study this specific area of communication and whatnot. So
And put it to them.
Yeah.
Stephanie and Samantha, storytelling, lots more the WEF audience needs to learn and pay attention to on this. Thank you both.
Thank
thank
you.
you. Take care.